When we speak of life lessons, one of the first and most essential postures we must embrace is sobriety, not the kind tied to abstaining from alcohol, but a far deeper, fuller kind of sobriety, the kind that grips the heart, clears the mind, and awakens the soul to reality. It is the clarity that comes when all illusions are stripped away and you're left staring at life and death for what they are. This world, for all its comforts and distractions, is not a playground. It's a battleground, and whether we acknowledge it or not, we are all caught in the middle of something far more serious than we often allow ourselves to believe. You see, the danger of modern life isn't merely in the pain and suffering it brings. No, the deeper danger is in how easy it is to be lulled to sleep by its comforts. We are entertained to death. We are medicated, distracted, overstimulated, and yet inwardly starving. Sobriety is that violent awakening of the soul where the fog is lifted and you realize that life is moving fast, time is slipping through your fingers, and eternity is pressing against the edge of every moment. It is to stand at the edge of everything you thought mattered and see how little of it actually does. People speak about chasing dreams, about making the most of every opportunity, about becoming their best selves. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but too often those messages are void of any depth. They don't ask you to confront your mortality. They don't urge you to reflect on the brevity of life, the fragility of time, or the weight of every choice you make. Sobriety does. Sobriety doesn't flatter. It doesn't soothe your ego or pat you on the back. It stops you dead in your tracks, looks you in the eye, and asks, "What are you doing with your life?" Not what do you wish you were doing. Not what do people think you're doing, but in the quiet, secret place, what are you really doing? Are you wasting it? Are you numbing it? Are you ignoring the signs? There is an urgency built into sobriety. A kind of holy panic that grabs you by the collar and says, "Wake up," because time doesn't care about your plans, it doesn't bend to your preferences, it just keeps going, and one day you'll wake up and realize that the opportunities you assumed would always be there are gone. The relationships you thought you had time to fix have faded, the words you kept postponing, those apologies, those confessions, those affirmations, never got spoken, and you will be left with nothing but regret and silence. Urgency is not the same as panic. It's not fear, mongering, it's not anxiety, it's clarity. It's when you begin to live like every moment has weight. It's when you stop assuming there will always be more time. That you'll get around to what matters someday. The truth is, someday isn't promised to you, and deep down we all know it, but we distract ourselves, telling ourselves we're too busy, too tired, too young, too old. And while we hesitate, life moves forward relentlessly. There's a danger in always thinking there's more time, a danger in believing that serious reflection, repentance, growth, those things can wait until we're ready. But what if time isn't waiting for you to be ready? What if the decisions you make right now are shaping who you will become, and who you will never get the chance to be? Sobriety sees that. Sobriety knows that today might be your last chance to forgive, to change, to speak truth, to love deeply. It's the realization that the clock is ticking not to scare you, but to awaken you. Most people are not destroyed by dramatic failures. They are destroyed by slow compromises, by little distractions, by 1,000 small choices to remain comfortable, complacent, and numb. And it's not because they don't care, it's because they never stopped long enough to really think, to really look at their life through the lens of eternity. Sobriety doesn't wait for the funeral, it doesn't wait for the diagnosis. It doesn't wait for the betrayal, the loss, the breakdown. It gets there before all that, and it says, you don't have to hit rock bottom to wake up. There is a heaviness that comes with seeing clearly. When your eyes are opened, you start to recognize just how much is at stake. Every moment you spend in apathy is a moment you'll never get back. Every time you look the other way, every time you put off the hard conversation, every time you choose distraction over discipline, you are shaping a future you may not want to live in. And yet, the beauty of sobriety is that it doesn't just expose the problem, it reveals the path forward. It shakes you not to condemn, but to redeem. But don't make the mistake of thinking that this kind of clarity comes easily. It doesn't. It often comes through fire, through brokenness, through silence. through long nights of the soul where everything you used to trust in has fallen apart. But it's in those moments, when the pretense is gone and the masks are off, that the most important questions rise to the surface. And those who have ears to hear will listen. Those who are willing to see will begin to change, not because someone inspired them, but because truth finally broke through their defenses. There's a reason why the most profound life lessons are almost always learned the hard way. We are stubborn creatures. We protect our illusions. We lie to ourselves constantly because the truth is often too painful to face. But if you would dare to see clearly, if you would dare to live with sober urgency, your life would look different. Your words would carry weight, your priorities would shift. You wouldn't be so quick to waste your time, to chase applause, to compromise what you know is right. You'd begin to live like life actually means something. Because it does, every second of it. The people who live with this kind of awareness aren't loud. They don't need to be. There's a gravity to them, a stillness, because they've seen what matters. They've faced their own fragility. They know what it's like to carry regret, and they've decided they don't want any more of it, not if they can help it. They've stopped blaming, they've stopped pretending, they've started living, not perfectly, but intentionally. They've traded the trivial for the true, and maybe that's what you need right now. Not another plan, not another excuse, but an honest look at where you are and where you're going, not later, not tomorrow. Now, while there's still time. Moral clarity is not some abstract idea reserved for philosophers or theologians. It's not complicated theory. It's the simple but terrifying ability to see right and wrong for what they are, without hiding behind excuses, justifications, or societal trends. And the reason we avoid moral clarity so often is because when it comes, it doesn't just shine a light on the world around us. It shines a light on us, it exposes, it confronts. It doesn't allow you to look away or redefine your failures as quirks or misunderstandings. It demands that you call sin what it is, not a mistake, not a phase, not a different perspective, but sin. And that's not something most people want to do. We live in an age where everything is being blurred. Truth has become relative, standards have become flexible, convictions have been swapped for opinions, and if you dare speak plainly, if you call something wrong, or dare to say that certain choices destroy people, you'll be accused of being judgmental, close-minded, even hateful. But this isn't about hate, it's about reality. It's about the difference between a road that leads to life and one that leads to destruction, and no amount of pretending can change where a road actually goes. You can rename it, decorate it, convince yourself it's beautiful, but if it leads to ruin, then that's the truth no matter how it makes you feel. Moral clarity is not cruelty. It's not a weapon to beat people with. It's not a license to be arrogant, but it is uncompromising. It does divide. It divides light from darkness, truth from deception, and wisdom from foolishness. It doesn't ask for your opinion, it calls for your obedience. That's what makes it so uncomfortable. It doesn't cater to your preferences. It doesn't bow to your emotions. It stands firm, immovable, and it says, "This is the way, walk in it." And when we are honest, we know this is what our hearts desperately need, even if we try to run from it. The tragedy is, we are being raised and shaped by a culture that tells us to follow our hearts, without ever questioning if our hearts are trustworthy. But what if your heart is wrong? What if your desires lead you off a cliff? What if the things you justify, excuse, and normalize are the very things that will one day shatter your life? That's why moral clarity matters, because without it, you're just stumbling in the dark, making decisions based on emotion, impulse, or popular opinion, and calling that freedom. But it's not freedom, it's slavery with a smile. It's a lie dressed up like liberty. Clarity doesn't always feel good. In fact, most of the time it wounds before it heals. When someone stands in front of you and speaks the truth, without spin, without compromise, it can feel offensive. It can feel like a personal attack, but often it's the most loving thing a person can do, because someone who tells you the truth, even when it costs them something, is someone who actually cares about your soul. Moral clarity is the friend who slaps you awake when you're about to walk off a ledge. It's the parent who says no when the rest of the world is saying yes. It's the still, small voice in your conscience that won't let you sleep peacefully while you live in rebellion. And yet, even though we desperately need clarity, we often choose comfort instead. It's easier to believe a lie that keeps us safe than a truth that convicts us to change. It's easier to live in the gray than to be forced to stand for something that may cost us everything. Because the moment you begin to walk in moral clarity, you will feel resistance from the world, from friends, sometimes even from yourself. You'll begin to see how much of your life was built on compromise, on fear of man, on image over integrity. You'll see how often you've traded truth for peace and clarity for convenience. Moral clarity is not for the faint of heart. It is for those who are willing to lose the world to gain their soul, for those who would rather be rejected for doing right than praised for going along with what's wrong. It's not just about knowing what's right. It's about loving what's right, about choosing it when it costs, choosing it when it hurts, choosing it when no one else will. And here's the part most don't understand. Clarity doesn't always come in a flash of insight. Often, it's forged in the fire of repentance. It grows through brokenness. You start to see clearly not when you're proud, but when you're humbled, when you finally admit how far off course you really were. We want clarity, but we don't want to give up control. We want wisdom, but we don't want correction. We want truth, but only if it agrees with our desires. But real clarity doesn't work that way. It forces you to lay down your pride, your entitlement, and your self-made morality. It demands surrender, and it rarely gives you the answers you hoped for. It gives you the answers you need. That's why it's powerful. That's why it's terrifying. Because the moment you start to see clearly, you can't hide anymore. You have to decide, you have to change, or you have to turn your back on truth fully and live with the weight of that decision. But many will settle for half-truths. They'll wrap sin in spiritual language. They'll redefine integrity until it fits their comfort zone. And in doing so, they deaden their conscience one compromise at a time. That's how people lose their way, not all at once, but slowly, quietly. They stop listening to that voice inside them that once spoke clearly. They drown it out. They push it away, and eventually they stop hearing it altogether. That's the danger of ignoring moral clarity. You don't just lose direction, you lose the ability to even recognize you're lost. There's a kind of pain that comes with seeing clearly. It's the pain of regret, of realizing you were wrong, of remembering all the ways you justified what you knew deep down wasn't right. But there's also a kind of peace that follows, a strange, almost uncomfortable peace that comes from no longer pretending, from standing in the light, even if it burns, from facing the truth, even if it breaks you. Because you'd rather be broken by the truth than comforted by a lie, and maybe that's where it begins, not with a lecture, not with a list of rules, but with a person willing to stop making excuses, willing to stop defending what should be confessed. Willing to stop waiting for someone else to change first. Moral clarity often starts in the silence, when no one else is around and there's no one to impress, just you and the truth and the voice that's been calling you back all along. Personal responsibility is one of those things that sounds simple until you try to actually live it. It's easy to talk about, easy to applaud when someone else does it, but it becomes a whole different story when it reaches your doorstep. When it's your choices, your consequences, your life, and the truth is, most people would rather blame than change. It's easier, it's safer, it protects your pride. But the reality is, nothing in your life will change, nothing real, nothing lasting, until you stop pointing fingers and start owning your part in the mess. We live in a world that constantly tells us we're victims. That everything wrong in our lives is someone else's fault. Our parents didn't love us enough, the system is rigged, the timing was off, we weren't supported, weren't understood, weren't seen, and maybe some of that is true. Life is hard, people do betray, circumstances can be cruel, but even if you were handed the worst deck possible, it's still your hand now. You can't control what came before, but you are fully responsible for what you do with it. That's the line people don't want to cross. That's the truth people fight, because it strips away the comfort of excuses. It forces you to look in the mirror and say, maybe I've been the problem too, and that's a hard pill to swallow. It doesn't feel good, it doesn't flatter you, it doesn't let you hide behind stories of how others failed you, but it's where growth begins, because as long as you keep blaming someone else, you give away your power to change. If it's all their fault, then what can you do? Nothing. You're stuck. But when you take responsibility, not just for the good, but for the bad, for the decisions you made, the words you said, the paths you chose, that's when freedom begins. Responsibility is not about shame. It's not about walking around with your head down, beating yourself up for the past. It's not about perfection. It's about ownership. It's about saying, that was me. I did that. I said that. I ignored the signs. I stayed when I should have walked away. I spoke when I should have stayed silent. I knew better, and I still did it. That kind of honesty is rare. Not because it's hard to understand, but because it costs your pride, and for most people, pride is far more important than peace. They'd rather keep looking good on the outside than deal with the wreckage on the inside. But the ones who change, the ones who really grow, they've come to a point where pretending just isn't worth it anymore. They're tired of the cycle, tired of making the same mistakes and blaming the same people. They're not looking for pity, they're looking for transformation, and that only comes when you take full responsibility for your life. Not just the things that happened to you, but how you responded to them. Because your response is always your responsibility, no matter how unfair, no matter how painful. What you do next is on you. It's easy to see this in others. You meet someone who's bitter, and all they talk about is how someone wronged them 10 years ago. They're still stuck in that moment, still circling the same wound, still justifying the same anger. And yes, maybe what happened to them was cruel, maybe it was unjust, but they've built their identity around that pain. They've refused to move forward, because moving forward means letting go of the story that's defined them. It means choosing healing over resentment, and healing takes responsibility. It means saying, I'm not going to let this ruin me anymore. And let's be honest, sometimes we don't want to get better. We say we do, we talk like we do, but deep down we like the attention that comes with being broken. We like the way people feel sorry for us. We like the moral high ground of being the victim. But the problem is, you can't be healed and be the victim forever. At some point you have to choose, and that choice, whether to grow or stay the same, is yours alone. No one can make it for you. Taking responsibility means confronting your own laziness, your own selfishness, your own patterns of self-sabotage. It means admitting that maybe you didn't try as hard as you could have. That maybe you weren't honest with yourself about what you really wanted. That maybe you've been blaming bad luck, when the truth is you lack discipline. And again, this isn't about guilt. This is about getting serious. Because if you don't take responsibility, someone else will always control your story. Life will push you around, people will walk over you, and you'll keep wondering why nothing ever changes. There's no real power in playing the victim. It may feel satisfying in the moment, but it robs you of the strength you need to change. Responsibility, on the other hand, is where the power is. It's where maturity is born. It's the difference between a child and an adult, not age, not experience, but ownership. Children blame, adults own. Children cry it's not fair. Adults say, maybe it's not, but it's still my job to respond the right way. That's what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. It's not how hard life hits them, it's how they respond, and there's no one too broken, too far gone, too damaged to start taking responsibility. You don't need a clean record to begin, you just need an honest heart. A willingness to stop spinning the narrative, to stop justifying, to stop defending what needs to be dismantled. That's when real change begins. That's when you stop going in circles and start making progress. But it won't come easy. Responsibility will cost you the comfort of blame. It will cost you the applause of people who like you weak. It will cost you the illusion that your problems are always someone else's fault. But what you gain in return is strength, integrity, authority over your own life, and yes, there will always be things outside of your control. There will always be wounds you didn't choose, pain you didn't cause, circumstances that weren't your fault. But responsibility doesn't mean owning what wasn't yours. It means refusing to let those things define you. It means saying, that happened to me, yes, but it doesn't get to decide who I become. That's a decision only you can make. And it's a decision you have to make over and over again. Every day in 100 small choices, you will be faced with the question, will I blame or will I build? Will I hide behind my pain or will I rise through it? Will I make excuses or will I make progress? That's the quiet battle of responsibility. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it's relentless. And the people who win that battle, who take full ownership of their lives, are the ones who rise above the noise. Not because life was easy, but because they refuse to let life make them small. Uncompromising truth is not comfortable. It never has been. It doesn't care about your feelings, your background, your upbringing, or what's culturally acceptable. It doesn't shift to fit the times, it doesn't bow to social pressure, it doesn't evolve with opinion polls, it stands fixed and immovable whether the world agrees with it or not. That's the very reason people fight it. Because the moment truth refuses to move, you are the one who must change, and we don't like that. We want truth that bends to us, not a truth that breaks us, but the truth that can be reshaped isn't truth at all. It's just preference wearing a mask. The truth will offend you before it frees you. It will hurt your pride, confront your desires, and reveal the cracks in your character. And if you're not ready for that, you'll walk away angry. You'll call truth hateful, narrow-minded, outdated. But deep down, you'll know it struck something real. Because truth, when spoken with clarity and without compromise, doesn't just enter the mind. It cuts straight to the heart. It has a weight to it, a power. A presence. You can sense it when it shows up in a room. You can feel it in the silence that follows. People might roll their eyes or mock it out loud, but inside they're wrestling because truth demands a verdict. It forces a decision. You either humble yourself before it or you harden yourself against it. There is no middle ground. We live in an age that glorifies the gray. We celebrate ambiguity, not clarity. We say things like live your truth, as if truth is a personal possession that changes based on how you feel. But the problem with that is it leaves everyone blind. If everyone's right, then no one is. If truth is whatever we say it is, then it's nothing at all. And that's the great lie of our generation. That truth is optional, that it's fluid, that you can take some, leave some, redefine it to suit your own narrative. But the real truth is not intimidated by what people think of it. It doesn't soften itself to gain followers. It doesn't dress itself up to be more appealing. It comes as it is raw, bold, and unapologetic. And here's the thing, truth doesn't need you to defend it, but it does call you to declare it. And when you do, don't expect applause, don't expect to be liked, don't expect to be invited to every table. When you choose to walk in uncompromising truth, you will lose some things, friends, comfort, reputation, popularity, but you'll gain something the world can't offer, a clear conscience, a solid foundation. Peace that doesn't depend on performance. You'll be able to look yourself in the mirror without flinching because you didn't sell your soul for acceptance. You didn't water it down to avoid conflict. You didn't stay silent when it mattered most. Uncompromising truth means speaking when it's inconvenient, standing when everyone else sits, saying no when everyone else is nodding yes. And you don't do that because you like being different. You do it because you fear the consequences of compromise more than the cost of obedience. You know what happens when truth is diluted. You've seen the damage. You've seen what happens when people start calling sin by softer names, when wrong is dressed up as personal freedom, and righteousness is seen as judgmental. It never leads to life. It leads to confusion, destruction, and despair. Compromise always begins small, just a word left out, a truth softened, a silence kept when you should have spoken. But over time, that pattern erodes your integrity. You become someone who once stood firm, but now blends in. Someone who once had conviction, but now just wants peace. And make no mistake, there is a kind of peace that comes from compromise, but it's not the peace that comes from truth. It's a fake peace, a fragile comfort, and it never lasts. Because deep down, you know you're not standing where you should be. You know you've traded the eternal for the temporary, and no applause, no approval, no acceptance can silence that quiet voice inside you that says you're not being honest. And the reason we need uncompromising truth today more than ever is because the world is drowning in lies. Lies about identity, lies about love, lies about justice, purpose, fulfillment, morality. Lies that sound good, feel good, look good, but are killing people from the inside out. People are being led with words that tickle the ears and poison the soul. And if someone doesn't stand up and speak the truth plainly, boldly, and without apology, the silence will do more damage than the lies ever could. But here's where it gets real. Walking in truth won't just make you a target from the outside. It'll test you from the inside. It'll force you to confront the parts of you that still want to be liked. The parts that crave comfort, the parts that still care more about being right than being righteous. Because truth isn't just something you speak, it's something you live. It's how you treat people. It's how you repent when you're wrong. It's how you carry yourself when no one's watching. It's easy to shout truth at others. It's harder to live it quietly when no one's clapping. And the world doesn't need more noise. It doesn't need louder opinions. It needs truth, tellers who are also truth, livers, people whose lives back up their words, people who don't just preach conviction but bleed it into their decisions, people who would rather be hated for truth than celebrated for compromise, people who don't flinch when the world shouts because they know they weren't called to echo the world, they were called to stand against it. Uncompromising truth isn't about being harsh. It's not about being louder. It's about being faithful, faithful when it's hard, faithful when it costs, faithful when no one else is. It's the quiet decision to not lie, not hide, not shift to gain approval. It's knowing that truth is not just something you agree with in your mind. It's something that shapes your choices, even when it cuts deep. And yes, truth cuts, but it cuts like a surgeon, not like a thief. It wounds to heal. It exposes to cleanse. It shatters illusions so you can finally see what's real. And when you've tasted that kind of truth, when you've let it tear through your pride, when you've felt it confront your darkness, when you've walked through the fire it brings and come out changed, you don't want the watered-down version anymore. You don't want pretty lies or soft opinions. You want the truth in full, no matter how sharp, because you've seen what it sets free. You've seen what it can restore. You've seen what it can resurrect. And you'd rather lose everything and keep that than gain the world and lose your soul. Hope through humility sounds like a paradox to the world, because we're taught that hope comes from strength, achievement, confidence, talent, power. But real hope, the kind that doesn't break when the world does, the kind that doesn't fade in the dark, is born in a place the world avoids, low places. Humility isn't just thinking less of yourself, it's seeing yourself rightly. Not too big, not too small, but as you are, broken, dependent, needy, but still loved, still chosen, still held. And that's what makes humility so powerful. It tells the truth, not just about others, but about yourself. It peels back the pride, the self-deception, the mask you wear to convince the world you've got it all together. Humility lets you say, I don't have what it takes. I'm not strong enough. I've failed. And instead of that being the end of the story, it becomes the beginning of something real. Because when you finally stop pretending to be your own savior, you open the door to real hope. Hope that doesn't rest on your performance, but on something deeper, something eternal. The proud man can't receive hope. He's too busy building his own. He's constructing his image, securing his position, defending his worth, trying to stay ahead. He's exhausted, he's anxious, but he can't admit it, because to admit weakness feels like death to him. So he keeps chasing illusions, success, affirmation, control, and every one of them fails him, every single time, because you can't find rest while you're running from reality. And the reality is, we're not meant to carry everything. We're not meant to hold it all together. We were never designed to be our own source of hope. But the humble man knows better. He knows his limits. He doesn't pretend. He doesn't posture. He kneels. He confesses. He opens his hands and lets go of the illusion that he's enough on his own, and in that place, where the ego dies, where self fades, that's where hope begins to rise, not hope in yourself, but hope in the one who never fails. Hope in something beyond your strength, your plans, your understanding, and it's in that surrender, in that giving up of control, that a strange peace begins to take root. Because when you're not trying to prove yourself anymore, you're finally free to receive what's already been offered. People often think humility means weakness, that it means letting people walk over you or losing your voice. But real humility is not weakness, it's strength under control. It's knowing who you are without needing everyone else to agree. It's choosing to listen instead of shout. It's having the right to be proud, but the wisdom to be quiet. It's not thinking you're worthless. It's knowing your worth doesn't come from what you do. And from that place, from that grounded sense of identity, you can weather storms that would crush the proud, because your hope isn't built on sand. There's a reason the proud fall, because they're standing on a foundation that looks solid until it's tested. And when life shakes them, everything collapses, their confidence shatters, their identity crumbles, their peace evaporates. But the humble, they've already let go of those fragile things, they've already embraced their smallness. They're not surprised by weakness, so when the storms come, they bend, but they don't break. They weep, but they don't lose heart, because their hope is rooted in something that suffering can't touch. Humility teaches you how to receive, and receiving is harder than it sounds. It requires admitting that you can't earn everything, that some things, peace, grace, love, can only be given, that you can't control when and how they come. And when you finally stop striving, when you let go of the pride that insists you've got to earn it all, you start to see the beauty of what's been waiting for you all along, unmerited, unchanging, undeserved. But real, and that's where hope lies, not in your ability, but in your willingness to be loved even when you feel unlovable. Hope through humility also changes the way you see others, because once you stop trying to outshine people, you can finally see them clearly. You can celebrate them without envy. You can serve without needing recognition. You can forgive because you know how much you've been forgiven. Humility levels the ground. It reminds you that no one's better. No one's worse. We're all in need. We're all broken. And that recognition doesn't bring despair. It brings unity. It brings compassion. Because when you know how much grace you need, you stop withholding it from others. And in a world obsessed with proving itself, humility is a quiet rebellion. It's choosing stillness over noise, surrender over striving, grace over grit, and in doing so, it creates a space where real hope can breathe. A hope that doesn't need headlines to stand, a hope that grows slow but deep, a hope that knows the value of waiting, that knows things take time, that sees beauty even in brokenness. It's the kind of hope that doesn't collapse when things don't go your way. Because it was never rooted in circumstances, it was rooted in truth. Humility also teaches you how to keep going when you fail, because you will, we all do, but the proud collapse under failure. They can't bear it. It threatens their entire identity, but the humble, they fall, but they get up, because their hope doesn't come from being flawless, it comes from being forgiven, and that gives you the courage to try again, to start over, to walk forward even when you've stumbled. That's the kind of hope the world desperately needs, not a polished, perfect hope, but a gritty, humble one, a hope that's been through the fire and still stands. And it's humility that lets you say the words most people can't. I was wrong. I need help. I don't know. Please forgive me. Those words are not weak. They're brave. They open the door to healing. They invite others in. They create space for growth, and through them, hope begins to rise. Because when you stop pretending to be more than you are, you become exactly who you are meant to be: honest, open, teachable, and full of potential. We're not saved by our strength. We're not sustained by our wisdom. We are carried by grace, and grace flows where pride is stepped aside. That's why humility is the path to hope, because the proud resist grace, but the humble receive it. They drink deep from it, and in doing so, they find a strength the world can't offer, a peace the world can't steal, and a hope that doesn't just survive, but overcomes.